Good afternoon, everyone. It's January 7th, 2020. I'm Eric. How's everyone doing? I hope you're all doing fairly well considering. There's some inconsistencies going on regarding what happened yesterday in Washington. And I'm going to go with my first comment here because he speaks directly about that, and I'm going to show you some other things here. This comes from Joey from Seattle. Shoot first, ask questions later. An unnamed cop at Capitol building shoots a 14-year Air Force veteran with a high security job dead. What if she were black? Well, if she were black, we'd have BLM out there rioting right now instead of the people who are. It could very well still be BLM out there rioting. And you're going to see why I say that in Antifa in a moment. Antifa dressed up in Capitol Police uniforms and Trump apparel and started attacking Trump supporters. 6 people broke into the Capitol building, and all 6 were identified as Antifa members and arrested. Richard T. Riley, eyewitness, he was quoting. So, then we go over here to Zero Hedge. Questions about the chaos at Capitol Hill that desperately need to be answered. We're going to hit this article, but before we do, let us scroll down to this. One bank thinks yesterday's events are only the beginning, and that bank was probably correct. Snowden. Zuckerberg's decision to silence Trump is the turning point in the battle for control of digital speech. Apparently, Zuckerberg has banned Trump from Facebook indefinitely. Flight attendants union calls for ban of pro-Trump rioters from flights. Schumer calls for Trump to be removed from office immediately. GOP lawmaker joins Democrats calling for 25th Amendment to remove Trump after Capitol stormed. Shopify terminates Trump-related e-commerce sites in response to riots. So basically, they are going to use the so-called pro-Trump riots as an excuse to A, crack down on free speech, especially free speech that's not leftist oriented, and they will be coming after firearms. Of course, they may play some sick games before it gets to that point. For example, let's say you're a congressman, and you got a group of people up there, and senator. You got a group of people up there, right? And you want to make a bunch of money for yourself, and your little clique. Well, you take some money, a few $1,000s or whatever it is that they end up investing, and you stick it into a gun company, right? You buy stocks in one of these companies. And then you start talking like, well, we're thinking about, doing a nationwide gun ban because too many people are being hurt and killed out there in the streets of America. These guns have no place. Weapons of war have no place on our streets. And of course, that in turn will send a lot of people running to the gun shops to buy guns, and their stock prices will rise, and then the people there, congressmen and senators, sell their stocks. That's been going on for quite some time. The public's been manipulated into running and buying all these weapons because many of these politicians have something to gain out of manipulating you into going and buying new guns. And this is one of the reasons why I said earlier, don't buy your gun from a store. Number one, they know you have the gun. Number two, when you buy from a store, you're giving your money to just another big corporation. And number three, you really, by not going to one of them stores, you're avoiding a whole bunch of bullshit. You find a person, say, hey, you want to sell that shotgun, that rifle, that whatever it is happens to be. I recommend personally armslist.com to buy your weapons from. I've bought several from the people on that website. Never had a problem. It's always been a quick, anonymous transaction. He had the gun, I had the money, so we made a deal. A lot of you should be expecting knocks at your door relatively soon regarding your ownership of firearms. So, they're coming after, just like was promised by the leftists, they're coming after people with, or should I say right-wing people, Trump supporters. And not the politicians, but the people on the street. See, MSN already using Capitol Hill riot to call for more internet censorship. But let's check out some of these questions they had. This comes from Michael Schneider from themostimportantnews.com. Like most Americans, I was absolutely horrified by the violence that I watched at the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday. I'm not horrified by it. I'm encouraged by it. But I had a difficult time trying to understand what I was witnessing. Trump supporters are almost always extremely peaceful. But many of those that were storming the Capitol were being very violent. And it didn't make sense to me. How in the world did the protesters get into the U.S. Capitol in the first place? There's question A. Well, it turns out that police actually opened up the barricades that were surrounding the U.S. Capitol and purposely allowed protesters to storm the building. You can see this on video right here. So let us do that. Steve Schmidt of the Capitol Police and federal law enforcement to protect the Capitol of the United States is profound It is inexcusable. Police opened gates and offered them in. Well, maybe we don't have to look at it at this. We might be able to watch it right here. Let's check it out.
Police are squabbling with protesters. Oh, there we go. And they just breached the Capitol again. Police are squabbling with protesters.
So yeah, they opened the gates for him, just like Schneider said here. He goes on to say, I've never seen anything like that in my entire life. Well, you have. You have seen. You seen it earlier this year when police were protecting infrastructure and big corporations while mom and pop businesses got burned down by Antifa and BLM. It's pretty similar, but this is a government building where our attention should be in the first place. And once they were inside the building, they were herded toward particular areas. For example, you can watch one guard actually lead protesters up one flight, up several flights of stairs. Somebody tweeted out, former FBI agent on the ground at U.S. Capitol just texted me and confirmed that at least one busload of Antifa thugs infiltrated peaceful Trump demonstrators as part of a false Trump flag ops. PSYOP. Look at the photographers while going up the stairs, and at the end, the officer is leading them where to go and gives the guy a little nudge and says, "They're here," when at the second floor, and officers just walk up and say, "Leave." Paid crisis actors to look like agitators. You see how that just happened? You get enough people together, and they will run from you. This is why we should not be fearing the state. This is why we should not be fearing the police. We outnumber them. Remember that. If 20 people get together and want to make a serious impact, it is quite possible for that to happen. Let's see what else does it say. Either the U.S. Congress has the worst security personnel that any of us has ever seen, or this was allowed to happen on purpose. And there are multiple reports that Antifa activists were brought in by bus. In fact, one patriot actually recorded video of the Antifa buses that were brought into the heart of Washington, D.C. with an escort.
Sitting up on Summit, and one marked state trooper vehicle, two black SUVs, there's three state trooper vehicles escorted, four Antifa shuttle buses right here front center. There was actually 5 vehicles total. There was 3 in front, 2 in the back. They escorted right here, waited for them to get off their buses, and then the state troopers unloaded and took their positions. Watch. There's that. He had his lights on. They were coming, and then there's the ones up front too. They escorted, and each one of those buses are labeled. So all paid charter buses.
Look at that, bro.
Check this out. Watch. Here's the black SUVs up front, and look, wait till you see.
Wow. They freaking brought Antifa here.
They escorted.
So they brought Antifa in, and now we have all these companies calling for Trump supporters to be punished some way or another. Sounds like the whole thing, except for maybe the grassroots people there, was contrived. Looks like it too. I mean, they did open those gates for those people. And it says that they also led these individuals where they wanted them to go. So, and of course, Biden gets his certification. And I told you, 4 days ago or so, that our year would largely depend on who won. Now you can expect, you may end up with your $2,000 stimulus check, but you can expect the lockdown tyranny to be stepped up. You could expect these fucking uniformed thugs out there to enforce those lockdowns. And I know there's been a few sheriff's departments that said they wouldn't enforce it, but more of them are willing to enforce it than not willing. Keep that in mind. We have the possibility of these people showing up at our houses with a social worker and a medical worker and a couple of armed thugs. It became a very, very real possibility. And again, my state has introduced legislation that bans forced vaccination. They're really big on the religious exemption down here. So, if you're looking for a state to come to that's a little less shitty, South Carolina is not too bad of a state. I mean, it's still a state in the United States, and there are still cops, but they act a little bit differently than the other cops that I've had run-ins with, and I'll give you an example here. The only time my car has been searched in this state, the only time, is when somebody called and said that I was threatening them with a gun. Okay? I got pulled over, and they told me somebody called them and said I had a gun, and they took me out and my kids out of the truck, and looked for a gun. And I did have a shitload of weapons in my truck at the time. Knives, machete, hatchet. And after they're done searching my truck, they said sorry to bother you, and left all they found right where it was. And I've been pulled over numerous times here for speeding and other stuff, seatbelt. They've never searched my car in any of those instances. So, and I'm not saying that they're good guys, okay? I'm just saying that they are a little bit different than the other ones around that I've had experiences with. They don't search your car every time they pull you over, and they don't give you a bunch of shit when they're giving you a ticket. They just give you the ticket and leave. But nonetheless, they're still cops. They're still there to serve the ruling class. They're just slightly more easygoing than the cops I've experienced in other states, including Illinois, Michigan, Iowa, and North Carolina. So, anyway, I thought I would share this with you. I hope everyone has a good day. And if you are a Trump supporter, man, I would be watching my ass if I were you. Maybe, maybe you should really consider not being a follower of anybody. Maybe you should consider becoming a leader in the American resistance movement. Until next time, kill the state, live free.